and then we'll move on to room heat pumps. Tom, go ahead.
All right, thank you so much. As Stacy said, my name is Tom Bucher. I'm a member of 2050 Partners and taking a lead role in the technical and product assessment on the induction and room heat pumps. Next slide, please. So just briefly reviewing our product definition, we are considering any permanently installed consumer-grade cooktops and ranges that are induction. This is including battery-equipped products, but not including portable induction cooktops. And we looked at those, carefully, and what we felt was they could be a good leverage point, in terms of getting people educating and trying out induction. But because one of the focuses of this is removing gas appliances, something that's portable and plug-in and doesn't actually fully displace a gas appliance wasn't necessarily part of our core MTI product. And we are also looking at Energy Star certified radiant. So the reason there is to kind of use the best performing radiant. We think that's, in the long term, we really prefer induction because of the cooking experience. But right now, because of product availability and cost, looking at both of those is probably the most beneficial in terms of electrifying cooking. And we should say the energy benefits are similar, but it's really about the cooking experience of induction in terms of how fast it can cook, how precise the temperature is, the idea of the cooler cooktop, things like that provide a larger benefit in some ways. Next slide, please. So just covering this in more detail, again, looking at induction cooktops, ranges that include the oven, the same thing with radiant cooktops and ranges, but again, only Energy Star certified at this point. And then looking at battery equipped, it could be either 120 volt or 240 volt with the battery equipped. We're not considering, right now we're not including 120 volt products that aren't battery equipped, just because based on our findings so far, we think that the limited power there will really negate a full cooking experience. So at this point, that's not part of the MTI definition. Next slide,
Hey, Tom.
please.
So Jeff Harris had a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay.
So you mentioned that you're not considering portable plug-in radiant cooktops, and I guess I understand the rationale because it's not then removing gas cooking equipment. However, one of your barriers we're going to talk about in your logic model is cultural preferences for gas for cooking. And I feel like that you're, by not allowing or including portable radiant products, you're forcing people to make the complete switch, even if culturally they don't feel comfortable moving to or leaving the flame behind, so to speak, when they could do some of their cooking on the radiant cooktop. If you're just boiling water, you don't care. But if you're making tortillas or some other special products that you need the flame for, it's a partial solution. I guess, so this is a comment and a question. It's like, is there a criteria that I'm missing? So the question is there a criteria that I'm missing where the complete elimination of natural gas for cooking is a criteria for this effort, or was it a choice?
So I think it's more of a choice. And I think I was trying to touch on that, but I don't think I did a good job. We still think that portable induction products are valuable. And it's something that we think can do things like you're saying, where it kind of eases people in, it allows people to try it out. Loaner programs can be possible as well, help education. We just don't believe it makes sense for us to track and count for the savings of those portables. One is just from a practicality standpoint, understanding someone has a gas and a portable cooktop. How do you estimate how much the actual savings are there? So I think it's a valuable piece of the puzzle in terms of getting induction on, but in terms of tracking and accounting for the savings from those portable units, we're just not trying to do that. Does that make sense?
Well, I understand it, but I guess I would push back and challenge you because the Energy Star retail products portfolio, the retailers, Best Buy, Home Depot, Lowe's, they all sell these portable products. And the agreements between participants and the retailers, participants being you all, and we're also an Energy Star retail products participant, we get whole category sales data. So if the plug-in versions of this is something that you wanted to pursue, you would at least get full counts of sales through the ESRPP program. Obviously, you'd have to come up with an energy savings methodology based on, sample data of how long people use them, et cetera. You'd have to do some survey work, but I don't see those as intractable compared to many other evaluation and energy savings determination problems that we faced in the energy efficiency world before. I don't see it as a huge hurdle. The data is the big one, which I get, but ESRPP is designed to solve that problem.
Okay, thanks. I mean, that's helpful feedback. I think we were more concerned on the second part, not understanding how many were sold, but how do we account properly for the savings of those products? But I think that's valuable feedback. So thank you.
Right. And just, oh yeah, we can move on, Tom.
Okay.
Sorry, Jeff.
Next slide, please. So, I think we've shown some results before, kind of looking at the constraints on panel capacity, and this isn't, not new information to anyone probably on this call. And just to review that, really, there's a number of different findings, all incomplete data, because it's really hard to do comprehensive panel capacity, studies. But, we think that using a 240-volt induction cooking appliance would require, some degree of either optimization or upgrade in at least 38% of multifamily and 30% of single family homes. And I think that might be even a little bit on the conservative side. So a lot of and then another 59% of multifamily and 32% of single family have these 100 amp panels. And, at that level, depending on what else you're electrifying, there's going to be some load management issues, things like that. And we really want to be careful also to not think of getting an induction appliance in there in a vacuum. We want to think holistically about electrification. So just because they have capacity right now for induction, and if they don't have a heat pump water heater or a air source heat pump for HVAC, we wouldn't want to constrain further electrification there. Jeff?
Sorry, I just can't help but note that in multifamily, if you're going to go for an actual replacement of the cooktop, you're now dealing with the building owner, not the tenant. And whereas if you were going to allow plug-in portable radiants, you would enable the tenants to be able to pursue radiant cooking on their own without anything needed from the multifamily property owner. So another thought for consideration. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, thank you. And then so again, there's a big there can be a big challenge here for this electrification and the electrical capacity needed for induction. And so if you look at this plot on the left, the top right-handed corner represents a normal 240-volt induction product. It requires a lot of panel capacity or amperage on the x-axis, but it also provides very high peak cooking power on the y-axis. Now, if you want to drop down and reduce your panel capacity, you can do that with a 120-volt product, but then you're down in the bottom left-hand corner. So you have saved your panel capacity, but now your peak cooking power has gone down by about a factor of 5 because of the limits of that electricity at 120 volt. But if you if you use a battery-equipped product, you're able to then save that panel capacity, stay low there, but then also provide that peak cooking power of 9 to 10 kilowatt. So while these products can be expensive, they can also be they can solve this problem of panel capacity without electrical upgrades. And when you consider that holistically with the cost of upgrades, in some situations it can be cost competitive. Next slide, please. So just want to do a quick review. This is not our original data. This is just the data reported for Energy Star cooking, kind of looking at the different types of electrical cooking. The little number there at the bottom just represents the number of data appliances tested in each category and the 3 types of electrical cooking. So open coil resistance, smooth resistance, which is really radiant cooktops, and then smooth induction. And, what we see here is there's really not a huge difference with existing appliances in terms of the energy consumption based on the EPA Energy Star test method. So when you think about which one's preferable from an energy efficiency standpoint, not a huge gap right here. Now, in theory, induction should be slightly more efficient. You're providing the heating and the energy directly to the pan, so there's some capability to minimize losses there. But with products today, they're kind of within the same ballpark. And I would note too that one important thing that was found through this was there's a lot of low power kind of parasitic losses, standby power in some of the units, and that's a little higher for induction. Some of the others, they have power electronics in there, and so a lot of those are kind of always on and using a little bit of power. So that's something that hasn't previously been tested, and they had no motivation to kind of optimize there. So I think a lot of those bad offenders with 40, 50 kilowatt hours per year of standby power will start to re-optimize not only for the Energy Star, but then also for the federal test standards coming in a few years. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick snapshot again at the what's available today on Energy Star website in terms of cooking products. There's kind of an even range of radiant and induction. I will say, so you're looking at the ranges, there's 23 of each. Ranges represent the vast majority of cooking appliances, especially in multifamily. So that's kind of where we're focusing more of our effort. But there are a number of additional induction cooktops. And we do think, talking to some experts and looking at some of the data ourselves, I think if Energy Star specifications tighten somewhat, it's likely that some of the radiant will fall off as these products are optimized, and it will become more of an induction focused product list. But for now, it's kind of an even balance. Next slide, please. So one thing I think that hasn't really been discussed much outside of the group and kind of for externally facing discussion is the fact that, primarily, again, 75% of cooking appliances in California in single family are ranges that include an oven, and 96% in multifamily. So we always talk about the induction on the cooktop, and we're really focusing on the cooktop because that's where there's a real change in the technology and the cooking experience. But you're also bringing along this large amount of energy consumption from an oven, which is really just kind of a standard electrical oven, and no one's really optimizing that. So it's something that's really important when you think about the annual energy consumption, bill impacts, and things like that, that when you talk about bringing on induction appliances, you're also talking about switching from a electric resistance oven or from a gas oven to electric resistance oven. And it's a little more efficient, but it doesn't have as much of the efficiency gain as induction cooking on the cooktop does. So it's just something to be aware of and think about more holistically about. This is actually what we're putting into the market mostly are these ranges, not just the cooktops. So what we did, we wanted to look at those bill impacts, and this is a focus just on the range. So again, including the oven, which is kind of makes the bill impacts a little worse because you have that large amount, about 60% of the energy is from that range. And so we took one time of use electricity rate from each IOU, and then also a SMUD rate as well. Then this SMUD rate was I think it's called an EV charging, but it was an electrification friendly rate with a higher fixed cost and a lower variable cost, just to look at another alternative. But when you look at the switching from a gas range to a induction range on the bottom there, you're looking at a average annual bill impact of about $150. So an increase of $150 if you switch from a standard gas range to an induction range. And then one interesting thing we found was because of these time of use rates, most of the cooking happens between the 4 to 9 period where the electricity rates are highest in California. So that really kind of penalizes the induction cooking and when you're using just a standard 240 volt product. The range on top actually kind of cuts that bill impact in half because even though you're cooking in the evening, you're able to charge it off peak. So you're using similar amount of energy for both of these, but you're cutting the bill impacts in about half because of being able to select a less expensive time to charge that product. Next slide, please. So I just want to make sure this is clear. We're just looking at a snapshot of the avoided costs. This is different than the full TSB that will be presented later. I think you're getting that in either October or November. But just this is a general understanding of when you look at the load shape and the avoided cost calculator, how do these different products compare and what are the avoided cost benefits? And this is just a simple annual average 2024 to 2052. So kind of how much you would save on a per product per year. When you look at the cooktop and range, you're $30 to $55. Then again, there's another interesting result here with the battery range. So the battery range actually uses about 15% more energy than the standard range because of round trip charging losses. But it actually has an avoided cost benefit that's about twice as high. And that's because, again, you're able to charge during times when the cost to the grid is the lowest. And then you have a larger avoided cost benefit. And we've actually gone further than this. This is just assuming that you would set it at one specific time and you leave it there, always charging at 2 a.m. or something like that. But if you actually take a situation where you use real-time pricing and every day you charge at the time with the lowest avoided cost, you can actually increase that to a 3 times benefit. So you get a 50% higher benefit again if you actually optimize that charging based on real-time grid information. So I think that's really something that's interesting to look into further and understand those benefits to the grid. Just want to touch briefly on the health and safety of gas cooking. I mean, I think this is a great leverage point because there are a lot of negative impacts to cooking indoor with an open flame. There was a study that found that about 12% of all childhood asthma in the US is related to indoor gas cooking. And in California specifically, it estimated that 20% of childhood asthma in California could be prevented if gas cooking was removed from those households, which is really a significant impact. Other thing I want to note is that when a gas cooking indoors without proper ventilation occurs, it is really dependent on the size of the volume of the home. So very small homes are going to have a much higher negative indoor air quality than a large single family home. So the people that see the greatest negative effects from this indoor air quality problem are going to be people in small multifamily homes and potentially ESJ communities. So something to be really aware of that's going to be an impact to those communities. Lastly, kind of looking at safety, it's difficult to find some data on this, but there are some indications that over 15,000 people burn themselves on a hot cooktop annually. And I think we've talked to different people and found that this is a big concern. There have been fires started from cooktops being accidentally turned on, both electric and gas. And then thinking more at a larger scale because of natural gas, having a natural gas connection to your house presents a safety risk as well. And there are over 200,000 natural gas leaks every year that actually require an emergency response. Next slide, please. So one thing that we want to be aware of and think about, but we don't really have complete data on yet, is the how reliable and how expensive is it going to be to operate these induction from a repair aspect. So we do have some early data kind of showing that there might be a little bit of a higher service rate and more expensive to repair induction compared to the incumbent technologies like a resistance cooktop or gas. I will note that if you look on the right there, the service rate has dropped significantly just in a few years, so dropping in half from 2020 to 2024. So these products are a little bit newer, which may cause some more reliability issues in the near term. But then you look down at the service rate for resistance, that's still significantly below what it is for induction. So it's something that we just want to be aware of and consider as we think about adoption and how this affects adoption, and especially thinking about in multifamily building owners, if they notice high rates of repair or replacement of these, I think it could cause a big issue there. Next slide. So when we think about some of the things from a product standpoint we want to see in the short and long term, we really think that there's an opportunity here with the 120 volt products, especially the battery equipped, and we want to think about and work with manufacturers to see, what's possible in that area, and can we bring more products to the market. Also looking at some smaller products at the 24-inch width that are really key for multifamily, making sure that we have good product offerings for a range of households there. And in the long term, it's not something we're pushing for, but we expect, radiant, as the products are refined in their energy efficiency and energy consumption, there's probably less radiant that are going to qualify for Energy Star. And we're really going to focus more on the induction, probably long term, at least pushing it again, because that better cooking experience as well. And we also want to see if, test procedures can really account for these battery equipped devices and also 120 volt products, because we think those, will become a larger part of the marketplace and need to be tested and their performance rated appropriately. Next slide, please. So just going over a summary, again, we are looking at Energy Star Radiant as a part of our definition, even though this is generally considered induction cooking. And it has those same energy and greenhouse gas benefits as induction. So someone wants it for, cost or availability, that's still an option there. We do think the 120 volt battery equipped will really be a key to solving some of the panel capacity issues, especially if we can drive down the costs. And then, looking at bill impacts is a significant issue, I think, that we need to be aware of, because people are very price sensitive to their bills. So we want to think about education and what else we can do there from that aspect. And lastly, again, we're really interested in understanding better what the impacts are in terms of the positive avoided cost benefits and bill impacts of using that battery to change, decouple your energy consumption from your cooking. And that's all, and happy to take questions. Jeff?
Thank you for the presentation, good material. One question on the last slide. So have you looked at what the energy implications are for the charge discharge efficiency for the battery powered products? I realize that in California with time of use rates, you're going to offset there will be some increased energy use, right? Because you've got a charge discharge efficiency in the battery product. For Energy Star National, I don't know how they would deal with that because they're looking at total energy consumption.
I think that's a huge, I think that's definitely a barrier to having them Energy Star listed right now. So I think I mentioned earlier, we don't have good data on these specific induction products. Right now, we are estimating about 15% penalty for the round trip charging, but that would be enough to exclude those products from Energy Star right now. So it's a difference between the benefit of annual energy versus time of use, and there's a difference there, yeah. Fred?
Said this before, but I want to emphasize that a lot seems to be riding on how much people use the oven, and just make sure your data is good and current there, because I don't know anybody who uses their oven that much.
Yeah, no, that we definitely want to get more field data, and we're actually looking at actually getting some field data from some of the 120 volt battery equipped products and help us understand, again, the proportion for the cooktop versus the oven. And yeah, that's, a lot of the assumptions are based on, we take our load shapes are based on EPRI field study, and we kind of look at that's baked in there, but, how accurate is that to California? Something we can keep refining and keep looking into. Any other questions?
Yeah, so I'm going to move us along. Just we will have a discussion at the end as well. So if you have other questions, just go ahead and note them, and then like at the end of Hope's, we'll have another opportunity, and at the end of Elaine's presentation. So Hope, Bobkowitz, you want to go ahead and?
Great, sure. Yeah, thank you, Stacey. My name is Hope Bobkowitz, and I am with the Cadmus Group, and I led a lot of the market research group, a lot of market research for the phase 2 work here for induction cooking. So I'm going to get into a little bit of that. Just for some context today before we dive into the findings, kind of just set the stage about the work that we completed. I'm not going to go into depth on any slide around the methodology, but we've in the past 4 to 5 months, we've done a lot of research with consumers and with market actors. At the beginning of the year, we did over 20 in-depth interviews with California actors, program administrators, subject matter experts, followed by some primary research in the form of focus groups and in-depth interviews with property managers, as well as home builders and remodelers. And then most recently, we did some quantitative surveys with California consumers and also a quantitative survey with property managers as well. And we did some secret shopping too and visited some stores in California to gather data on how induction cooking products were being stocked and promoted and marketed. So some of these, I think the group may have heard a little bit of some of our preliminary findings in prior presentations, so it may be a recap, but really the goal here is to drill down into some key themes, point out areas where there was coalescence from various market actors, and really highlight the most important things from the research that I think are relevant to the program theory and the vision that Elaine is going to share. So it's just, it's by no means everything. There will be a full report coming out, and I believe, Stacy, that's coming out on November 1st. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, just some context that this is really the highlights reel, and there's a lot more in the report coming. So go ahead, next slide. Thank you. So first, a key finding that's building on what Tom already presented on the theme of electrical infrastructure. Widespread adoption of efficient electric cooking, whether that's electric radiant or induction, in the residential sector in California will require some interventions in the form of product innovation, either panel upgrades or panel optimization strategies. Just a little quote there from what we heard from a home remodeler. Most kitchen remodels are finding that there isn't sufficient electrical capacity. Next slide. This was a cost barrier that we heard from program administrators, also from manufacturers. Property managers are highly aware of this barrier for electrifying cooking in their units, and home remodelers, as I mentioned. Specifically, they talked about the need for adding new outlets, dedicated circuits, new wiring. Those are all things that are even, beyond the panel capacity issue, and describe that a lot of times customers that they're working with don't want to bear that extra cost. So it's a very large cost barrier for the market. And then that second bullet there is just restating what Tom had already shared, which is there's a pretty large proportion of California households that have small panel capacity. And even if they're not going to receive a panel upgrade, there are some strategies that need to happen around that. One of those strategies is getting into some new product innovation, as we were mentioning. There is an opportunity for 120-volt ranges and cooktops to kind of fill this gap. Right now, the vast majority of induction models available to buy are 240 volts. Right now, CalMTA is aware of 2 induction products on the market that are battery-equipped technology, 120-volt models, which would allow for cooking electrification without panel optimization or upgrades. This is the specific niche that they are filling. You can read that that website copy that I put on the slide there from a manufacturer called Copper Home. When upgrading from gas, getting enough electricity to an induction range used to be expensive and complex, but Charlie, which is their model, plugs into the outlet you already have, easy peasy. So they're very much capitalizing on this market opportunity. They know that the electrical infrastructure needs are complicated and costly, and from their perspective, their model fits that, fills that gap in the market. However, they come at a very premium price point. The products that the team is aware of are both around $6,000 before any eligible incentives could be applied. And I think the key here is that we're seeing this new product innovation coming from these small startup firms. The companies that are making 120-volt battery equipped products are really these new market entrants. And when we spoke with your kind of mainstream larger kitchen appliance manufacturers, you know, some of the big name appliance manufacturers that you all have, that we all have in our kitchen right now, whether it's a cooktop or range, a refrigerator or wall oven, they actually told us they didn't have plans to enter into this market. They cited various things like just the cost of R&D to get into this market was too high. They have concerns about, you know, product performance and technical issues. And so it was really interesting to see that these larger market actors really weren't touching this space, and it opened up this new opportunity for marketing, new startups to occupy that niche. So what that means really is there's a big opportunity to engage manufacturers on this, to develop additional models, to begin changing the marketplace so we have some more competition, and we can get those prices down in the long term to lower price points. That is a photo, just to point out real quick before we transition to the next slide. This is actually a capture of one of the Chefluencer events, and that model that you see there, the white range, is Copper Homes Charlie. That's the name of the product. Next slide. Also, there is an opportunity to build on the interest in induction cooking, even among gas users in California, through strategies such as loaner programs and in-person demonstrations. This is a really interesting finding coming from some of our survey work. Next slide. So among Californians who are aware of induction, a large, portion of them have a positive impression of induction cooktops and are very interested in induction cooking. Even some of them wanting to switch away from their current appliance. When asked if they had to purchase a new appliance due to their appliance breaking, or maybe they are undergoing a renovation, even 19% of current gas users said that they would prefer to switch to an induction cooking product. So that's really, really positive and great momentum. But that said, there's still a large majority of people who stated that they would prefer gas. So we do know that there is still a bias there, that people have a perception of gas cooking as a superior cooking experience or a cooking method. So there's some work to do, but we can build on this kind of existing momentum and positive impressions, positive attitudes towards induction. The other really kind of exciting thing that came out of this is that, we had known from talking with other program administrators and from, reading some prior published evaluation reports on this, that getting induction in front of people, demonstrating cooking, getting them to experience it, is a really effective strategy to expose people to induction cooking and get them excited about it. And I know we were just talking about that a few slides ago. Whether it's through a loaner program or even a demonstration, where there's an opportunity to educate people and talk about the benefits of induction, those have a real impact. And we tested this idea out in the survey and found that overall 68% of our survey respondents said they would be either very interested or at least somewhat interested in trying out an induction loaner product. We went ahead and split out those findings by housing type in the chart, just because there is that really stark difference among multifamily respondents there. They were particularly drawn to this idea. You can see 71% of multifamily respondents were very interested in this idea. So I think that's a really great opportunity to build on. Next slide.
I have some questions before you move on.
Oh, sure. Yeah, go ahead. Jump in.
Go back. So the first question is about the first bullet. You say 58% of Californians who are aware of induction cooking. What's the current awareness fraction in the general population?
Great question. This actually, maybe these slides were slightly out of sequence, but I'm going to get to that on the next slide. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there another question you wanted to follow on with that? Or?
The second question is how was the loaner program described to the survey participants? What description did you give them?
Let me pull it for you. Oh, I can put it in the chat. I can pull the exact wording, but I think it was just something like, you know, please rate your level of interest. We told them to rate on a rating scale using these a word scale, the one that you see on the slide.
So you didn't necessarily describe what a loaner would look like to them?
Let me pull it for you. I'll see the exact wording. Yeah, I know we emphasized it was no cost to them. And
no, I know
it was like temporary, but I don't know if we actually gave them a description of the size.
Okay.
I'll get it for you.
Thanks.
Yeah, good question. Okay. All right, there we are. So the other finding, and this is related to adoption or awareness, and how that kind of pertains to future adoption. There is an opportunity to accelerate the adoption of induction cooking by promoting safety benefits and, in general, improving awareness of induction cooking overall. And here, the next slide, we're going to get to this question of percent aware. The majority of Californians have heard of induction, but by their own self-selection, they don't know very much about it. And that was the wording that they chose in our survey when given a choice. A smaller proportion, about 16%, stated they felt like they knew a lot about induction and were very educated on it. The vast majority have heard of it, but don't really know much. And then there's about a quarter of Californians that have never heard of induction at all prior to taking our survey. So that, I think, gives you the snapshot on awareness that you were looking for. Among people who are aware of induction and how it works, safety and the fact that cooktop surfaces stay cool was a very strong value proposition. This was also something that was affirmed in our focus groups. This was really interesting to go a little deeper with people and listen in on their discussions around this, because it really showcased that, yeah, there's people who may have heard of induction, but they don't understand how it works. They don't understand that it uses the electromagnetic technology. And so the idea of the cool cooktop was kind of new. Once they were aware of it and had been informed of it, it was actually one of the top benefits that the focus group participants also coalesced around. They particularly talked about benefits for households with kids and senior citizens. And then we saw it again also come up in our quantitative survey for the respondents who said they wanted to switch to induction if they had an opportunity to get a new appliance. The reasons being safety was the top reason for them wanting to make that switch. It was also a really strong value proposition for property managers as well. Next slide. And then, so just kind of building on to this point, we thought it was very interesting that even though this was a really strong, powerful message for consumers, it's often not promoted. In doing online shopping research and then in-store shopping research, that photo is of a cooktop, or excuse me, of a range during one of our store visits. The main messages that we found promoted over and over again were concepts of faster cooking and energy efficiency, which is kind of cool that they're promoting energy efficiency. But you can also read through some of the product description online and the features that they're emphasizing. It doesn't really touch the cool cooktop or the safety message or a reduction in burn risk or anything like that. And we found that to be very powerful for people. So just kind of interesting there, and maybe some opportunities for CalMTA related efforts. Next slide. Okay, so talking a little bit about property managers. Property managers are really interested in induction, but they are cautious, and they have some concerns about cost. You can see the quote there. It would depend on the market rent difference justifies putting in an induction range, because from what I'm aware of, they're a little bit pricier than your standard heating element cooktop. There is a perception among property managers that induction is a premium product. And I think it has been up until maybe recently, maybe still is. They are a little more costly. So can you go to the next slide, please? Property managers really liked the idea of enhanced safety. That was the top benefit. They also really like the idea of anything that will improve property value or the rentability of their units. In the quantitative survey we did of property managers, there was a very strong proportion of respondents who said they would be likely to install induction if they needed to renovate their unit. 42% said they would be very likely to install induction. But during the interviews where you dig a little bit deeper, we found that really that's quite heavily caveated with it's a business decision and it's going to have to pencil. So it's not that they're necessarily closed to the idea, but any way that it can, the price can pencil out is going to be the way to get property managers on board. Even so, with the cost penciling, we did also see a host of other barriers that property managers cited. As I mentioned before, they're very aware of required electrical upgrades. 37% of them cited that would be a barrier to installing induction. They're concerned about durability and the possibility of having to make costly repairs. And then lastly, you can see that top bar. They share this belief that consumers and tenants want gas. So they're a little, I think that there is some convincing that has to be done there for property managers that this is actually something that will improve rentability of your unit. They don't want to take a risk there.
Oh, Christy had a question.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Sorry, I'm not paying attention.
No problem.
Thanks for calling it out. Go ahead, Christy.
Yeah, no problem. This is actually about the last slide, because some material I saw came out of I think it was DOE was really emphasizing the health impacts. So like the previous slide, we were talking about the primary reasons. Maybe the one before that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, about why people want to switch to induction.
Yeah, and you cited safety, but I didn't see, and cooking experience and cleaning, but I didn't see health.
Oh, it's conspicuously absent from that. It was something that people cited for sure, but it wasn't one of the top reasons. And our report goes into this a little bit more, Christy. That's a really good question about how people view this idea of, health and indoor air quality. We didn't see it coming through super strong in our surveys, and we know from talking in depth with people during the focus groups where we could really explore this. There was there's not a lot of awareness about it, but there was also a little bit of skepticism that gas cooking could have negative impacts on your health. So we do point that out as a pretty large opportunity to build awareness and education. Because as Tom was showing before, the health benefits from electrifying are pretty substantial, but a lot of people don't seem to know about them, and or maybe don't feel very strongly about it, or maybe feel a little skeptical that what they're cooking on right now is really bad for them. So there's a whole kind of psychology element there that I think could be interesting to dive into, but I'm happy to send you, we do have that, some data on that, and I can send it to you. It just didn't rise to one of those top 3. If that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that helps. I think it is a potential area to improve.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Right, thanks, Christy. So we have a few more, so I'm going to call on Cyan.
Yeah, hi. I'm just curious. I think that the health would be a selling point, even to landlords, that they would know that they might be able to communicate that to incoming tenants. And I wonder if you did any kind of before and after a little bit. So, presenting people with information about health or about other aspects, and then seeing where their interest in switching might be.
Yeah, that's great. We actually did exactly that. Thank you for raising that. We did do that. We asked people what their likelihood would be to purchase an induction product, and then we presented them with some information, you know, very brief because it was in a survey. So, well, what if you knew this? What if you knew that indoor air quality could be improved? Or what if, I think we used a statistic about equivalency to secondhand smoke, indoor air pollution. And then we asked them, does that change your opinion or your likelihood? And we saw, again, this really interesting dynamic where it was a very small list, very small change. So there's some work to be done there. It's really interesting to get this feedback and to talk to consumers about that. We presented some other ideas too, like, well, what if we told you the price was the same or cheaper than a competing range or competing cooktop? And that, you know, price really really boosts people's likelihood to think about installing this product, because there is this perception that these are high cost products, but the IAQ information, less so. And again, it's not to say that this isn't powerful. It's a little surprising to see, I think, the market reaction to them, but it doesn't mean that there's not opportunity there to work on that.
Thanks. So, Fred?
A couple things. One, going back quite a ways, just interpreting some of your data differently. There are millions and millions and millions, especially of single family homes, that are wired to accept these. So you've got some barriers and you've got some markets that are just ginormous where the barriers are less. So
Sure.
I think, you know, that sort of lends itself to a two-phase sort of market transformation approach. Maybe I'm getting ahead of the presentation there, but it's like the glass is half full, even though it's half empty.
Yeah.
And regarding the health benefits, I think they're kind of messy because they're particularly serious when there are smaller, more enclosed and less ventilated kitchens or where people don't use their ventilation. You know, for example, you know, some people ventilate when they're on the range, but they don't ventilate if the oven's running. And there are issues with both. So it's kind of hard to, with integrity, sell the ventilation benefits in a market that doesn't think in specifics. Because there's a lot of people for whom they're really not that pertinent. You know, I just as a footnote to that and another motivation, when we renovated, we put in an induction stove to future proof our house, in spite of the fact that we don't have a ventilation problem. We've got a fan, we use it, etc. There's not a health issue, but
Right.
someone else might not think that specifically, but it's kind of a fraught benefit for a very large proportion of your audience.
Yeah, it's very personalized to everyone's individual setting, the size of their home, the airflow in their kitchen, whether or not they're using ventilation. So yeah, it could be that people think, well, this isn't an issue for me, or, you know, a whole host of reasons. So I agree. Thank you for raising that. I think we do have some data somewhere that I can also send. This was from some literature review that we did about the presence and prevalence of ventilation, or the number of people that do use ventilation. And so there is a concern there generally, again, especially when you're thinking about ESJ communities. And yeah, I think there's a few interesting ways to think through it, but it's an interesting topic to understand the data and what it really means and how we can build upon that.
Yeah. Okay, Hope, I think you have two more findings, right?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay, yes, I'm hearing Stacy nudge me along. Okay, so real quick, wanted to share a snapshot of our findings from our online shopping and secret shopping at retail locations. This may look familiar to some of you. I think maybe we shared some of it. We found that induction cooking products are underrepresented at brick and mortar retail locations, and also retail associates often promote gas products. Next slide. You can see just a quick snapshot there comparing models that we found online versus in store in California locations. We visited 8 stores in Alameda County and LA County. They were mainly big box locations, and found a really small number of induction products stocked and displayed, just 9%, whereas if you look online, that percentage is almost a quarter. And you can see it's still lagging the number of models that are available to purchase. They're still lagging behind electric resistance and gas models, but there's still a lot more that you can find online than in store. And then, interestingly, in a lot of cases, the associates that our shoppers spoke with just didn't, kind of wanted to steer them away from induction, and had some pretty strong promotional messages about gas. So opportunity there maybe to do some engagement in the retail sector. Next slide. This one is regarding new construction and what we found here. And this is also one that's a little complex, I think. Home builders and remodelers have generally been slow to switch to induction. We didn't find one single barrier that we could point to because of this. It was kind of a combination of things like product availability and finding the products that they wanted to fit their kitchen design, the availability by the quantities that they wanted, cost, as well as the perception that their customers or home buyers, in the case of production builders, still wanted gas. So they are installing gas for sure, in part due to what they believe is the customer preference for gas. So that's why, we kind of conclude that as the market shifts, there's definitely a give and take here. We need new construction to be out ahead. We really want to lock in those electrification opportunities. If they're still doing gas, we're missing that opportunity. But also as consumers become more aware and have stronger preferences for induction, that's going to help builders and remodelers as well. And I think, we're at the end. So any other questions for these?
And just hope there's a couple questions in the chat, and just in the interest of time, I'm gonna say we'll respond to those after, directly. We can do it, in the notes and directly with the person who asked. But I think I want to just limit the sort of questions to the MTAP members.
And some of them are going to be addressed in this portion, I think.
Okay, super.
Yeah. Okay, well, good morning, everybody. So Elaine Miller with the CalMTA team with Resource Innovations. I'm going to go through the logic models with you all. I know you've seen conceptual logic models of these, so these are a little deeper dive, little more granularity in terms of what we think outcomes might be from our interventions. So let's get started. Go ahead, Takwa. So I wanted to just start with kind of the overall vision for induction, and I think you know this, but kind of this is the MT theory visions, and how it connects. So, and why, again, why this is one of the first ones out of the gate, I think is a really great, it's a really great MT potential here. So we know induction cooking offers an improved cooking experience with some clear benefits beyond efficiency. Next, cooking represents the highest profile end use in an all-electric home and serves, we think, as a linchpin technology for full electrification to move away from gas. We do have induction products, and to Fred's point, we are not just focusing on the 120 volt gas conversion. We're talking about the whole market here, but we do see this a product gap around availability and dealing with the 120 volt limitation. There's other barriers around consumer awareness we've talked about, low market share, these products have been around a while, and overall availability of affordable products remains low. Next slide. So really, with our interventions looking at overcoming consumer reluctance through chef-fluencer events, building awareness on the benefits, addressing availability of affordable product through manufacturer engagement, retailer engagement. You'll see all of this in the logic model, and looking at this 120 volt product, and all of this needs to be addressed together at scale. So that's kind of the why we want to do this now. So if we can capitalize on induction's benefits, overcome these availability, cost challenges, and persuade consumers on the benefit side, we really think we can quickly facilitate a faster and easier transition to an all-electric home. Last one there. Oh, I thought there was one more there, but I guess not. Okay, so you guys have seen, I think, logic models, and not expecting you to read that, Fred. I see that. We're going to go in a deep dive. You know, just wanted to share like a snapshot, because I think all of you are aware that these interventions, they're not in a silo, right? They really are going to work together. You're going to have retailer engagement that's going to benefit from all the marketing work that we're doing. You're going to have manufacturer engagement on a new product, but that work will also spill over into Energy Star engagement over time, for example. So a lot of these things, they work together. They need to be sequenced. But to get everything on a page, you got to have this horrific diagram here. So we're going to dive in deep. I'm going to go through each intervention and what barriers each intervention is aiming to address, and then go through with the expected outputs and outcomes. So we're going to kind of go by each one, and then we'll go down, if that's this. But first, next slide,
Elaine,
please.
I
Yeah.
think it's beautiful. But we did, just to help people with that, like viewing it, Alyssa went ahead and put a link in the chat to this logic model. We'll give one for the room heat pumps in a minute, but or in a few minutes. But the you know, that'll allow you to sort of zoom in if you want to. But Elaine, like she said, she's going to go through the parts and pieces. So
Yeah. And I think, and also I should mention, you can only get so many words on these things. So there's a lot under the hood on each of these that you'll see in the advancement plans, a lot more detail. But to start, we're really looking for this long-term impact. We think by 2035, efficient electric cooking products are required in new construction. We can't prescribe induction, but we really can help the new construction market move towards electric more quickly, we think, and induction because of all the benefits. In addition, majority of all cooktops and ranges sold in California are efficient electric, meaning, you know, the Energy Star spec, as Tom mentioned, does include some efficient radiant. We do think over time that Energy Star specification, as it gets more stringent with new versions, that may fall, that those electric resistance might fall off, but we want to keep it broad at this point. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first intervention is really all around manufacturer engagement and really working to get a product out there that will help fill this gap on 120 volt to you know to prevent the need of trying to upgrade the electrical to 240 and moving from gas. As Tom mentioned, and Hope, but there's these two new startups in California. We know it can be done. I'm still just leaving the Energy Star Partners meeting, and I've talked to all three of the manufacturers about this product. They do see an opportunity for this, and it's something we really want to see a good opportunity for CalMTA to double down in. I do want to mention, though, this strategic intervention is not just manufacturer engagement will be focused on this, but it also gives us an opportunity to keep ongoing engagement with manufacturers beyond just this product, right? So we'll be, you know, it'll help us with issues around, you know, if there are any kind of warranty issues with these products because they're fairly new, or any kind of, you know, as Tom talked about, the cost of repair, things like this. These are all things that will allow us to work with manufacturers in addition to focusing on this product. Do you want to stop for some questions, Stacy, or should I keep going? And
no, let's go ahead. Peter, go ahead. And see everyone at the same time.
oh, Peter, you're on mute.
Yeah.
I'm happy to wait for the presentation, but if you want to maybe go ahead, I can go.
Is it relative to what she's sharing right now, or is it sort of overall?
Well, just quickly then, the question was on a long-term goal. If the goal was on efficient electrical products, and as I heard earlier, Energy Star may penalize induction with battery because of round trip efficiency. Does that mean that our goal is to not have battery products?
No, I'm not sure that that's the case. You know, I've had conversations with Energy Star on this battery equipped product, and they said they're very open to having this product in the next version. added to the specification. I mean, it depends on the testing. It depends, maybe we need to learn more about the impacts on the efficiency levels that the batteries may have. But my understanding in talking to Energy Star is they're very open to this, and this would be something they'd want to see over time too.
I think that makes sense generally, because likely between 4 and 9 we're running off battery power, and it may be upstream or maybe in the house. But the batteries may just be on the electrical system upstream of the house. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah.
And then just one thing, Elaine, just to mention this little icon with the people in it.
Oh, yes, sorry.
That's okay. It's I noticed the key wasn't on the link either, but these are what equity, these kind of have an equity component to them, is that?
What you'll see is the interventions we feel like have a very strong focus, doesn't mean exclusively, but focus to serve an ESJ limited income consumers. I mean, this is one of them. We feel like this is a huge gap for this audience, for this target market, and one of the main reasons why we want to get this product out there. So you'll see that across for each of the interventions, that icon. Okay, let's keep going and then we can pause again. So the barriers that this intervention is meant to address is really around this gap, existing California homes built for gas cooking and the 120 volt challenge. And we don't think, we've looked at this, getting a stove out there that's 120 volt that is a compromised cooking experience, we really think that's a bad idea. I think we've talked to NYSERDA, the NYCHA folks about that. That's a bad headline that we're pushing a compromised product out there. So this is really, that's part of the backstory of this. We think over time, this is really going to address the higher product and installation costs. And then over time, if you have the battery, you open up some other energy benefits for the consumer. If you can charge off peak, time of use rates, things like that, then we think this will help mitigate the challenge around bill impacts from moving from gas to electric. In terms of opportunities, market opportunities that we're leveraging, we're really looking at the new market entrants, the NYCHA, NYSERDA work that they're doing, and the national momentum around this 120 volt battery equipped product. Sorry, Takwa, go ahead. So in terms of initial outputs for this, we see releasing a tech challenge with some sort of bulk purchase agreement for guaranteed purchase, much like the NYSERDA and NYCHA folks have done, really leveraging the good work they've done there. Talked to just recently the manufacturers about this. They feel very open to this. The mantra from them is, you need to show me that there is the demand. And so that's the heart of this potential intervention, is really looking at releasing that spec coupled with some agreements in place for some large multifamily or property management firms in California. Another output there would be agreements. Another opportunity here is in the folks that we've talked to, the startups, so the copper product that Hope talked about, there is potentially IP available from that manufacturer. They have said they're going after this high-end market. Can we play a role in expanding the IP of that technology with others? I mean, I think NIA has done this as an intervention in the past. I think this is something we could really play a role in trying to accelerate the development of this product through that opportunity. And in terms of outputs, we think in the short term, once we get, go ahead. Sorry, outcomes, get confused there. Outcomes, we really do see, quickly we'd be able to leverage the work that's already been done out there, and manufacturers within 1 year to 2 years be able to respond with product roadmaps and scaled production plans for this product. Midterm, we see, go ahead, Takwa. Midterm, we see this impacting product availability of this product, increase overall in sales in this category of induction, especially if we can get that Energy Star rating for this product. We do see this product as a tool for others in the market who run programs for demand response and other, tapping into showing that these other energy benefits are there for consumers. Over long-term price declines, and then of course the long term, really looking at this technology is part of the mix and a tool for increased benefits and overall market share. So that's kind of how these things flow together. Okay, unless there's are there any more questions on this?
7 more. So
Oh, okay. Okay,
yeah.
keep going.
Yeah,
Sorry.
let's keep going. Lillian, just for time check, I'm giving you till noon, so I think we have enough time, but I want to make sure.
Oh,
that
okay. I think we'll be
discuss
fine.
after if we need to.
Yeah, we'll be fine. So I combined the next two interventions because I think they have very similar outcomes and outputs. This is really around long-term supporting the advancement of codes, policies, practices that increase consumer preference for electric cooking and reduce costs associated with installing electric. So this has to do with things that are some that's already happening in California, obviously. So the new code, for example, requires builders to put in this 240 volt outlet within 5 feet of where the cooking appliance is going to go, even if the builders insist on putting in gas, right? Increased ventilation requirements, even though they're putting in gas. So these are all things that are chipping away at the prevalence of gas and the builders and, costs associated with putting in gas. So these are things we want to be supportive of, not things necessarily that CalMTA is going to drive, but we want to be able to provide data. We want to provide, case studies on examples, things like that could all be support others in the market who are doing this kind of work. Same thing goes on the support advancement of electrification enabling rate structures. Again, not something that we would drive, but we really think is there is momentum in this, we feel in California going now. And it's an important piece to help mitigate the bill impacts of converting from gas to electric. So we want to be in a position to demonstrate how induction could support, especially with that battery-enabled product. Next slide. So again, barriers this works to address is higher product and installation costs. For induction, this should chip away at it. Bill impacts moving from gas to electric over time. Again, those electrification rates. And in terms of opportunities we're leveraging, again, this national work, that momentum around this 120 volt battery equipped product, and then just overall momentum in California on electrification and growing awareness on indoor air quality stuff. This is all pieces that we can leverage in our interventions. Jeff, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sorry to go back a little bit, but the bill impacts question. So the analysis that was shown had the total bill impacts for both the range, the cooktop, and the oven. Is that correct? Is that what we were shown, Tom?
I think that's what Tom did. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Do you know what it is if it was just the cooktop, just the induction cooktop without the impacts of the electric range?
I have it. I'll put it in the chat. I'll look it up. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I mean, I think it's roughly half, the negative bill impact size.
So the negative bill impact, yeah, could be cut in half if it were just the range top alone. And I'm just thinking ahead about like how to other ways to mitigate the bill impacts. That's all.
I think the only issue there is if they have a gas oven, we want to make sure we're replacing all the gas cooking. So there's some nuances there.
Well, I'm just trying to think out of the box. Do we have to get rid of the gas oven? What if the gas oven stayed and we were just doing the cooktop? I mean, if you don't want to, if you don't need to eliminate that, anyway, it's just a thought to reduce the bill impacts, because to Fred's point, a lot more people are using their cooktop than they are using their oven.
That's true. That's true. Maybe it's an interim step.
Yeah.
A piece of the puzzle. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that feedback. Next slide. So I think an output of this could be, some sort of policy map, advocacy plans about what CalMTA's appropriate role is. go out and talk to all these other folks. We've talked to some, but what would help them? You know, we've talked to the carb folks, and what would help them over time tackle this product. They're certainly not going to touch it right now, but maybe down the road, this is something they were thrilled that we were thinking about this product now to help build the market to help them later. So this is an area where we really need to figure out what our role is and what data, what engagement can we provide to add to that. So we think over time, you know, policy codes and electric rate structures that decrease consumer, we see an increasing amount of that. We just learned about the gas labeling thing that looks like it's progressing in California. We would have more data for this and understanding the bill impacts for limited income consumers. It's another outcome we really need. Midterm, this would feed into the Induction Energy Star rated product. Increase just sales overall, increasing over gas. We feel that would have an impact, and more folks, you know, more opportunities for these electrification rates grows across California in the long, and then in the very long term, this of course feeds into market share overall and the reduction in that electric bill barrier to purchase. So these are okay, the next one is really, you know, get to your point, Fred, I think earlier, really looking at the builders as a early win. If we can engage with influential builders and remodelers through incentives, bulk purchase pricing coupled with marketing support. I think I saw something in the chat about getting induction into some of their model homes. This would be something we want to do, hit the ground running early on in the program. So we could, you know, we've heard from some of the other programs in California, wouldn't it be great if we actually did chefluencer events for the builders itself, right? So to convince them, help them understand the technology. So this would be one intervention we'd want to do early on in the plan. These would address, again, some of the cultural and consumer attachment to gas, low consumer awareness. We think there's an opportunity for, you know, that coupling of cookware, getting over somewhat of the barrier and fear of that. You know, it was just at the Energy Star Partners meeting, Samsung is giving away cookware with a sell of their product, right? So that's an opportunity with the builders as well. And again, taking advantage of this electrification momentum work that's already happening in California. So initial outputs would be agreements with key builders and remodelers. And again, not all builders. We try to look for the leaders in the market. This could involve some of the you know, innovators on the green building, full electric folks. Habitat for Humanity is folks that we've worked with in the past in NIA with great effect. So I think that could be on the list. But these are folks we would get agreements in place and figure out what's the best way to do it. Is it an incentive? Is it a bulk purchase? And or pot giveaway, things like that. So a lot under the hood there. Outcome wise, we would see builders change design plans and installation of induction cooking grows in new construction. Awareness and preference for efficient electric cooking increases. See, those are things that we could measure in the near term. Midterm, looking at price declines with that aggregate demand from builders. Increasingly, production builders use these products in both single family and multifamily. And I should make clear that I wouldn't want to just go after single family builders. We'd want to really talk to multifamily builders as well. And of course, the you know, market share increases relative to gas products, midterm, long term, again, long term, keeps increasing. This is around the, you know, tackling the building hearts and minds, you know, barriers around people's attachment to gas. So we would have a full intervention around building consumer acceptance and drive awareness through marketing and education campaigns on the benefits of induction cooking. And you know, definitely not something for us to do on our own. There's many partners that we feel like we could help do this. BDC is doing a great job out there. A lot of the utilities, local utilities are working on this. So we would be adding to this and supporting others in their deployment of this in the market. And again, this could work with bringing the manufacturers into this co-marketing of some kind, or retailers. This could work with some of the other interventions. Again, barriers around awareness, and attachment to gas, need for cookware. These are all three barriers this could tackle, and taking advantage of, this is, the new Energy Star specification that went into effect last fall. And possibly figuring out, this is a challenge I'm learning about the layering of possible IRA incentives. Okay, next one. Oh, and this, I guess I should mention too, to Christy's point, this, the momentum around indoor air quality and the actual research that's coming out now, I think this is a great opportunity to integrate that into the marketing, and really get more awareness around this, because I think that's what we found in the research, that there is just either, if there is awareness, there's somewhat of a skepticism around it. So it's definitely something we want to leverage in the entire marketing effort. Outputs would be around marketing plans, assets, and key partners for co-marketing agreements in place. Outcomes would be initially around builders, change design plans, awareness overall grows, and increasingly induction and the marketing messages around that could be included across a swath of programs, right? It could be a measure in weatherization programs. It could be even in resilience programs that aren't targeting EE, they're targeting more resilience for indoor air quality. Next outcome. Production builders increase over time utilizing this product, and again, market share grows. These are all related. Okay, is there anything going on in the chat I should address, or trying to keep track of both? Okay. So this is related, recognizing that, CalMTA is new kid on the block. There are definitely some programs already, we know, and how can CalMTA support others that are working in this market? I think there's, lots of opportunity once we have this battery equipped product, that where we can layer in whatever folks need that are running downstream programs. There's lots of opportunity here that will require a great deal of coordination, but I think there's great potential to leverage each other's work there.
Elaine,
Randall, do you want to?
Yeah, take a second. Randall, I have a question to this portion.
Yeah, going back to the last, yeah. I think there needs to be something about focusing on the oven aspects of a range. Just doing some quick searches, and it sort of validates the assumption that most wall ovens are electric. And I think if you can separate the oven from the cooktop, there is a preference for electric ovens. So now if you look at it from a range standpoint, I think there should be some discussions or some outreach on saying that, hey, if you do baking, and you believe that electric ovens are better, then that's a benefit for having an electric range.
Yeah, and maybe that's something
so
we
I
can
think
talk to builders about too. Yeah.
Builders, I mean, I was talking to somebody who was, in the business of trying to promote electric induction, and I said, well, do you talk about baking at all? And they go, well, no. And he said, yeah, I'm a real baker. I like to bake, and that, and it's like it never dawned on him to even promote that aspect of an electric range, is, that you get this built-in oven that's maybe better or preferential than the. So we can't focus just on the cooktop aspects, and if you're going to compare energy bills, you know, the base case, if you do have a separate oven and cooktop, is that, you know, to the extent that there are more electric ovens, you have to separate out the energy use between the oven and the cooktop. So the energy bills for the oven only may be higher, but to the extent that people, to the extent that there's more of them and they're preferred, you know, that has to be taken into consideration too in the cost comparison.
Thank you.
All right, Elaine.
All right, I thought Jeff had a question. Okay. Keep going here. So I think you can keep going, Takwa. This one, I think we can go through quickly. I mean, really the whole effort here is, you know, helping others who are already working in this market and how supporting inclusion of affordable induction into other programs. This could help tackle the higher product and installation costs. For example, if it's included in weatherization programs or low income bill assistance programs, things like that. This could help mitigate that. Let's see. Yeah, we'll keep going, I guess. Outputs around this could be program tools, case studies, benefits messaging, manufacturer buy down a product, delivered for programs to leverage. And our outcomes would be looking for, you know, on this increased awareness, increased inclusion in programs, inclusion. And once we get a battery equipped product into other programs that are looking at time of use rates and demand response efforts. In the midterm, we'd be literally looking towards overall increases. This would feed into that. And then the long term, again, overall market share. Okay, keep going. So this one, I know we've talked a little bit about it. So we do see an opportunity over time to engage Energy Star on a version 2 of this for this product category. You know, we've had some discussions with them, and you know, I think from what I've heard, the idea of including a battery equipped product in the Energy Star specification is doable according to what they've told me. It's maybe there's more work and understanding that needs to happen there, but that's, you know, what I've heard so far. There is opportunity to drive efficiency a little bit higher, and we think some of the electric resistance will fall off, and effectively it will become an induction spec over time. And this would, of course, long-term work to, again, build awareness and leverage the Energy Star brand, and tying to IRA incentives as well. So we'd have an output of this would be to really, you know, get in deep on this, on the Energy Star roadmap, where they're headed, and really work to gain the data that will help make the case for that over time. It's kind of a midterm approach, I think. So using Energy Star brand, we're going to help build awareness and preference for efficient electric cooking. Midterm, this all feeds into potentially a new spec, version 2.0, and we would work to include that battery equipped product in that spec. And overall market share. We know how important the Energy Star brand is for that. So this is on the midstream, working with
Elaine?
yeah.
Sorry.
So,
Trying to get up.
Go back.
Yep, Jeff had a
Sorry.
question.
back here.
Yeah, your the light blue turquoise, whatever color that is, about 2.0. Are you suggesting that there be a separate category for cooktops and ranges with battery storage?
My understanding is it wouldn't be a separate, you know, in talking to Stephen Laybourne in Energy Star, he doesn't see a problem with including the battery equipped product in the specs over time. He doesn't think that impacts the efficiency, which is where they're, And maybe that's what I meant by maybe we need to dig in more with him, and maybe
Yeah.
he doesn't understand this.
Yeah.
But we
If
need
I
to spend
could-
more time.
If I could add, Elaine, I dropped a note in the
Yeah.
chat, Jeff
Oh, okay.
Harris. Again, this is all real time. I think Elaine had the conversation yesterday,
Okay.
with Energy
Yeah,
Star.
so
So
we have
a
a lot
lot
to
of
learn.
unknown. Theorizing, right? I would expect it to be handled very similarly to how Energy Star handled the heat pump or the water heater spec,
Yeah.
where they had a different UEF requirement for 240 volt versus 120 volt heat pump water heaters. Just lowering the bar a little bit to make it easier for those products that are a little more,
That's a good way to think about it.
energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, I see in the chat too, thinking about it as a emerging tech category for Energy Star designation, there's probably multiple ways to do it.
It's a different product. I'd really encourage you to
Okay.
stay on that path, because it's going to have round trip efficiency losses because of the battery that the radiant cooktop is not going to have. So, or a 240 volt induction. So,
Okay.
sorry to drag us into the weeds, but if you're
No,
having
that's helpful.
if you're
This is
having these
all,
conversations now, Energy Star needs to start thinking that these are two different products,
Okay.
so that they don't put a.
I honestly don't think they're that familiar with them yet. I mean,
Okay.
there are only 2 manufacturers that have it, so it's all very early.
Yeah. And just another note, if I could, I mean, on the Energy Star, side, definitely, these are less efficient product, with the round trip losses. But per, Tom's information earlier in the product assessment, from a carbon standpoint, and, given the ability to, charge off peak, hugely beneficial
Hugely
on
beneficial.
the carbon and TSB standpoint.
Yeah, but for now, Energy Star is kind of locked into energy as the metric, and so if it ultimately gets carbon and something more like TSB, like you guys have in California, then yeah, we're not there yet nationally.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay.
And I do think, sorry, just the reason I dwelled on that is I do think Energy Star is still a huge motivator, a differentiator for the general public buying appliances. So it's going to play a significant role as you're
Yeah,
trying
it's
to
important. Absolutely.
market these to customers.
Yeah. Don't want to leave that off the table.
Yep.
Okay, this is midstream. And again, like Jeff said, I have real-time conversations this morning with Nationwide about this. We are running the pilots right now with ESRPP. And we think that this is something we will continue to want to do. They're very interested and excited about induction. I had meetings yesterday with Best Buy, and they said, in between induction and combi washer dryer, heat pump dryer technologies, those are the 2 most exciting products they have in the appliance category, and they look for excitement. So they're excited to continue and really double down on induction in particular. So that's good to hear. So we'd want to continue deploying midstream stocking incentives that motivate the retailers to target limited income consumers and more affordable induction products. So this is, again, a reminder that we are providing differential incentives between some of the stores that are, we have determined predominantly serve ESJ communities, and a different incentive for the base induction product. So the retailers are excited to learn about that. The other energy ESRPP partners are excited to learn about that and how that works out. But we think it's something we really want to continue with as this program evolves. This tackles higher product and installation cost, helps with awareness, helps along this cultural, working on the cultural and consumer attachment to gas. And also there's potentially something in there for the pots if we can, like Samsung right now is already giving away the pots. So this is an opportunity to leverage that through midstream. And again, this is another aggregator across leveraging the ESRPP platform for the whole country that it's already in existence. So we want to leverage that market opportunity. Outputs of this would be retailer partner agreements, incentive tracking, and retailer data sharing. Full category data, super important for these programs, would be a prime output of this effort. Next slide, or next one. So outcomes of this would be retailer partner stock and sell more affordable products to ESJ predominant communities. These would be, we would have metrics in place to track that. Next one. Longer term, we look at overall average price declines. We'd see, increasing sales of induction and electric rated products. And this, of course, is feeder information for Energy Star over time when we get to the time of doing another spec. And a long-term market share, again, increase. Next slide. So those are all the interventions. And I wanted to maybe pause there for a moment. I think we have time. And, again, all of these things are meant to kind of work together and enhance each other. They're not in a silo. They're also meant to be sequenced. We wouldn't do all of them out of the gate. We would maybe do the manufacturer engagement one and the builder one out of the gate, because those are opportunities we could act on quickly. The new Energy Star spec down the road, some of these others might come later and be stacked over time. But I just wanted to pause and see, is there any big gaps that you all see in your experience in terms of other big chunks of interventions we should be thinking about in this logic model? No? Maybe you need to digest. Certainly can take that feedback later too.
Well, I think a couple of thoughts. One, the barrier of cost for these things. Perhaps there's an activity or an intervention around trying to actually understand where economies of scale could come from. Jeff Mitchell, you and I have talked about this a little bit, about that there looks like there's opportunity to reduce manufacturing costs, but we don't understand that as well as we could or should. And similarly with the battery products, spending some resources to go chase down what do you actually need in a battery. I mean, the copper product is clearly a premium product, but where could we reduce the cost of that battery product to where it could be nominally, incrementally, not that much more expensive than let's say a radiant cooktop instead of an induction cooktop. Anyway, there's like a tear down analysis, the kinds of things, Jeff, that we did with heat pump water heaters here and dryers.
Okay.
So, just a thought.
Good thought. Right.
So this is about, short preamble. I always struggle with detailed logic models because they look like a huge jumble by the time you get everything into them. It's very hard to find your way through them. So I have not in the past found them super useful, except for implementation where they are. With that in mind, I think you've got two somewhat codependent initiatives. And if you structured this thing a little differently, it may be more followable. One is for mostly upper middle single family homes where there is ventilation, health is less of an issue, and there is a near-term market opportunity to accelerate the market with currently existing products. And that's like one set of outcomes you can get. Another one dependent on that, but independent, is trying to get functional battery operated 120 volt products that will allow you to get at markets with, and there's more of a health issue here for smaller homes, poor ventilation, multifamily, middle to lower income. And that's dependent on this new product. It's on a different timeline. And there's a different set of actions in this really intelligent jumble you have here. But if you sort of try to break that out and describe them more thematically as two things you're going to do, I think this thing would be more followable. I think this is an editorial, not a substantive comment, but I found it very hard to track through all of this, doing all of those things, because I don't think that's true. I think you've got two markets here and there's different stuff. And sermon.
So maybe two logic models that kind of leverage each other in terms of build, a near-term one with a certain target, longer term one with a certain target.
Or at least
That
a
what you're saying?
dotted line or a gray area, so it's described as two things somehow.
Okay. That's great feedback. I think it will be easier to think about that in the context of the MTI plan where there's a narrative. But good point. Jeff?
To pig pile on Fred's, I actually was looking the same way in terms of market segmentation. You've got, but for two different market segments. New construction is clearly going to be an easier activity with more near-term results. I mean, many of the barriers that you've just talked about go away in new construction. You can have full, 200 amp electric panel. You don't have any electrical upgrades. You're selling to a new construction audience, which is expecting a higher level of, tech in their homes and et cetera. I mean, there's lots of and developers of new construction subdivisions may not be putting gas infrastructure in. So it may not even be a choice. The only choice is between induction and radiant. So there's a ton of things that you could leverage in the new construction market to get to radiant cooking or electric cooking right out of the gate. Right. It just seems like a more fruitful enterprise right up front.
The way I was thinking about it was the new construction market is really just an initial tactic to get to the whole market. Because I mean, it's kind of happening on its own, but how do we accelerate that and profile that for the rest of the market? So I see it as kind of, remember, Jeff, when we were talking about high performance windows, the savings in segmenting that market on its own is very small, but using it as an on-ramp to the larger market and building some momentum is really the way I was thinking about it. But
that makes sense. Okay, you're on the right track there. Yeah. But I'm going to come back to my other thing that you can tell I'm a little stuck on, which is in low-income households, especially in multifamily, I still would hypothesize that portables might be the fastest way to increase induction cooking. And I realize that there's problems. Karen and I had a little offline conversation about what that might be. But I think there's a little hint of what you could accomplish in the CalMTA survey, which asked the question of those households, like who would be interested in a loaner? And the way the loaner was described was essentially a portable product. And there was a very significant response saying, yeah, I'd like to try a loaner. And now I don't know what the current saturation of, portable inductions products are in households in California. That would be something you'd have to figure out. But I'm guessing that there are existing surveys of residential appliance saturation in California that you might be able to tap. You could do phone surveys or web surveys of customers. But if it's not that high, then there's room to improve by going after portables. There's no electric infrastructure required. The actual cost of the 2-burner induction products is sub $500. And there's a behavioral component to this where you could just say, hey, we want you to try this as a new cooking technology, but also you're going to be doing good things for the planet, reducing emissions, all that other stuff. How much of your cooking can you shift from your gas burner to the 2-burner induction portable?
I could see one intervention around multifamily, and a first stage of that intervention is around the use of these products to build awareness, to build buy-in, and then over time, once we have the battery equipped product, that comes later. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Should we keep going?
Anyone else have other? I just want to make sure other folks who have questions or comments on this one.
I see Andre has we've been thinking about this and how to get builders to take this, and had some conversations, and using the chefluencer events, using a buy down approach. There's multiple things I think we could try to do with builders to get them to include them in their model homes.
Elaine, I'm just wondering if we go to a break now, would that give you a little?
Well, I just want to finish let me just finish the if then statements on the overall. theory of change. So this is just overall thinking about theory of change and ideas, putting it all in one kind of cogent narrative, I guess. So thinking about if major manufacturers see large demand signals from multifamily building owners and programs, then they will be motivated to develop. So this gets to that aggregated, show me the demand for this newish product. Next one, please. So if consumers understand the superior cooking experience and positive health impacts of induction, then they will be more open to demanding this product and giving up their gas stoves. Next one. If builders and remodelers understand the benefits of induction and hear that from their consumers that they want induction, then builders will demand these products over time. So these are just trying to put these in a nutshell of theory of change. If consumers have some financial tools through electrification rates and program support to mitigate electric bill impacts of transitioning from gas to electric cooking, then they will overcome this barrier about impacts to bills. Over time, if California codes continue to push for residential electrification and consumer and builders value induction cooking, then new construction, this should become the new standard in new construction. If retailers are rewarded for stocking and promoting induction, then induction market share will grow through the retail channel. If affordable products are available and consumer acceptance is there, then the majority of the market share should grow and be the dominant product over time. Oh, last part of this, then it will be easier, we think, go back, Takwa. Easier over time, once market share and acceptance reaches a certain level, that'll enable the other folks to think about including induction as in the regulatory push to move away from gas cooking appliance sales in California. Don't think that's doable in the near term, but in the long term, 6-7 year time frame, we do think that could be the final MT play towards the end. Okay, that's it.
Excellent.
We'll take a break.
Okay, yeah. So we'll go ahead and take a break. Sorry, we're a little bit off our agenda, but not
are we?
not far
Sorry,
off.
I thought
No,
we
we're
could-
fine.
Okay.
I gave you the wrong information, but it's okay.
Right.
But we're gonna catch up. So we're just gonna take a 10-minute break. I think what we'll do is come back at 12:05, and then we'll move right into the room heat pumps presentation with Tom, Hope, and then again Elaine. So if again, we'll have discussion and questions, and there'll be time at the end to do that. So I will see you guys in about 10 minutes.